it's more likely to transfer to pink eye, run into that. So that's going to happen. The weather doesn't look good, so it'll probably be inside. And we'll see what happens. It's in Columbia. We're going to start. Official start time is about 8. Right? And it's by reservation only. So right now they have about 20 people plus 4 Girl Scouts. I don't know why they don't count as people, but yeah. All right. Okay, I'm gonna go first. And one of the things I've done, oh shoot, I shut it down. Okay. I've read 2 books over the past, say, 6 months about astronomy, and I just wanted to share this with you. Okay, this book I can highly recommend. It's at times it does a little bit of a deep dive, but the interesting thing about it is that if you're into stars, how stars form, how they function, how they die, that kind of thing, it's a really good book about pulling together a lot of information you might have in your head and making sense out of it. And it takes the perspective of telling the history of the universe from the standpoint of 21 stars up in the sky. Stars that we're familiar with, like Sirius and Mira and some of the others. So it gives you a much better appreciation of what you're looking at when you look at one of those stars. And so I would highly, very, very easy read, by the way, easy to get through. And the other book.
What's the name of it, Wayne?
History of the Universe in 21 Stars. It's by Giles Sparrow, Sparrow. And the other one and wants to see me again. The other one is called Cosmic Queries. It was co-written by Neil Tyson and James Turfill, who I've never heard of before. I'm not a big fan of Tyson. I mean, he knows his stuff. He's fully qualified, but I don't think he does a good job of explaining some things. But this book is completely different. It's probably the best, easy to read, and I mean it's fun to read, survey of the big questions we still have about the universe, the state of the technology we're using to try to answer those questions, and some of the history behind each one of them. So you go through things like how did the universe get the way it is? How old is it? What's it made of? What is life? Which is a really interesting chapter, and a few others like that. So I would recommend this one highly. These 2 books work really well together. You don't have to have a lot of technical knowledge to enjoy this book at all. It doesn't rely on that. So that's all I have. Tom, how about you?
I stole your seat, sorry.
Actually, I better move. Actually, put all this together.
Let's talk about the annular solar eclipse June 10th. I don't know if you heard about that. Get Sky and Telescope or astronomers to talk about it.
What does annular mean?
Well, I'm going to get into that.
Oh,
You're jumping ahead already.
sorry. Yeah, okay.
Okay, you have three different types. You have the partial, okay? And if you weren't in the path of totality for the 2017, then you would have saw a partial in this area. Annular eclipse, and I'll get into why it's annular. And of course, the total eclipse, if you happen to be in the path. Okay, this is the reason why. Of course, the moon it's not a perfect circle in terms of its orbits and ellipse. So sometimes it's closer and sometimes it's further from the Earth in its orbit. And of course, it's rotating or going in the orbit 27 days. And they call us like the micromoon. If it's at its closest to Earth, its orbit or perigee is about 222,000 miles away. That's the closest approach. And that would be where you see they call it the supermoon. Usually refer to that in the paper. This is the average. And if it's further away, at the apogee, it's 252,000 miles away, which is a 30,000 mile difference, okay, in its distance to Earth. And that would be where it's much smaller. Okay, now this is what it looks like if you put these two together. You have an average compared to the supermoon. And that's why when the paper will say, well, you get a supermoon's that, everybody goes, oh, well, hell, it doesn't look any bigger. But that's why, because you're not going to see the difference that well. Okay, when you put it, that shows you the perspective. People go out there and they'll see it on the horizon, it looks big, but that's because, as it moves up into the sky, it's going to get smaller. And you're not going to see really a difference when they say there's a supermoon out. I don't think you're going to see that difference, okay? Now, when the moon's at apogee, when it's farther away, it's presenting a smaller diameter, okay, in the sky. So it's not going to cover completely the sun. And that's why you're just going to get a ring. And it just so happens that's what's happened in June 10th. So here's a graphic of it. Here's a total eclipse. Of course, that's going to happen at perigee when it's close. And you're going to have the umbra, or the main shadow, from the moon. It's going to have a track across the Earth, and it's going to touch the Earth at that point. The annular eclipse, because it's further away, is going to show only a ring and not cover the sun completely. And its umbra is not going to hit the Earth at all. A little more detail on that is it's going to have called a antumbra for an annular eclipse. Okay, and that's going to track across just like a total eclipse would. And of course, you're going to have the penumbra, which is the area where the partial eclipse will be visible. And that's what we're going to have here. And I'll show you the map of where the annular eclipse is going to be seen and where the partial eclipse is going to be seen. And that's shown here. Here's the path. It's actually going to be in Canada and going out to Siberia to Russia. So you're not going to see the ring around the sun as an annulus. And for Lancaster County, if you look here, here's Washington and New York, it's going to be about 75% covered. Now here's the key, it's going to occur at 5:35 a.m. So those of you that work, probably up already, you can take a look at it, but it's going to start by the time it's sunrise. Now this time, 5:35, is when it's totally above and resting on the horizon. Okay. So 5:35, and you'll see about a 75%. And from that point on till 6:33, about an hour, you'll see it now getting larger and larger till all of a sudden the eclipse is over. So you have to have a good hour to photograph it, to look at it. But it's going to start at 5:35 as soon as basically sunrise occurs.
What day of the week that is? Thursday.
Okay, it's Thursday. Here's some times, as we show here for Philly. So close to Lancaster is going to be, that's why I said 5:35 is sunrise. That's when the entire solar disk will be above the horizon. Now you'll obviously need an unobstructed view of the east, because it's going to be right on the horizon, and you're going to have about another hour till it goes up about 15 degrees to observe the partial. Okay, so about 55 minutes to observe it. So if you're up or set the alarm, you'll have to about from 5:30 to 6:30 to see progressive stages till it's not the moon's not obstructing the sun anymore. Now, viewing the partial safely, the same constraints now, it's going to be a partial eclipse. If you saved your solar eclipse glasses from 2017, hopefully you still have them, because we got another one coming up in 2024. It's going to come through Erie, I think from Texas and right up. So that's the next a total solar eclipse. So you can use that, or you can purchase the glasses online, or a number 14 welder's glass, which is shown here, also works well. But you have to use the eclipse glasses or well, yes.
And don't put a telescope in front of them or binoculars in front of them.
Because you've seen that when you're done when you're a kid and you have the lens and you want to burn paper and start a fire. Think of having a pair of binoculars and you have the filter behind there. Well, guess what? It's going to burn right through that, right into your eyeball. So, and especially when you're looking through a telescope or binoculars, it takes a matter of like a second and a half till you got permanent damage, because you're concentrating that beam and it's going to burn the retina. So.
I've melted eyepieces like that, or one eyepiece.
Well, in fact, yeah, I saw a presentation one time years ago, and somebody, because there may be cheap telescopes, and they had plastic eyepieces with plastic lenses, and it showed one where they put the lens, it wasn't over the front of the objective, and it showed the whole thing had melted. The good thing was there because it went right into the eye, but bad news. Now, if you're going to use a telescope or binoculars, which is good too, use a proper solar filter that goes to the front, pointing out the front of your telescope or binoculars, not in the back. There's club member Steve Hollinger right here. He has one. We had the Venus transit, and he has, you can see one right over. Is that a homemade one, or did you get that from?
Yeah, it was Bader film that I bought and then just made the.
Right, okay, I use that too to make them, okay, yeah, okay, so that, he's showing that on the front of his. You can also get ones for your binoculars. From Orion has these, depending on the size, whether it's 50 or 80 millimeters or 70, you can get ones that fit right over the binoculars, so there's various types available, have the vendors, Orion has them, High Point Scientific, OPT, they're all available now, so if you want to take a look, set the alarm, and June 10th at the sunrise, of course, it's weather permitting, yes, Jim.
If you have a small pair of compact binoculars, I have a pair of them. They'll fit right behind your welding glass lens.
Yeah, sure.
Secure it really well.
Yeah, secure it well, yeah.
Lots of duct tape or something.
I held it on it.
Well, when I was a kid, I got this welding, the welding glasses like this rectangle. So I took some safety glasses and pasted it to the front with duct tape, and I would put those babies on. It worked really well. So as long as you don't have any holes around, or it's totally blanked off, so you don't want any of that get in your eye. But yeah, that'll work. Any questions about this?
Yeah, Tom,
Yeah.
if you're in that path of annularity,
Yes.
is that like a pretty cool sight to see? Seeing that, because I've never seen one.
Well, I've never seen one either, but I think that would be, I've seen a total. That's the first one I saw was in 2017. I went to Missouri with my son, went out there and we saw it, but I never saw an annular one. But I think that would be, total was like awesome. You never saw one, you've got to see one. But I think this would be, the annular would be something to see a ring around there. It would just be, it's not going to match what you see in the total eclipse though, but I've never seen one.
Isn't there one in 2023 going across America?
Annular?
Yeah, an annular one.
I think there would be. I think it was in that Sky and
They
Telescope.
usually come in
Yeah, they come in groups.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so that would make sense, because the following year is the total.
Right, that would make sense, yeah.
One thing to add, keep in mind, when the eclipse is over, the sun will only be about 8 degrees above the horizon, which is a little bit more than your fist width. So the point is, you're gonna need a really clear horizon to see any of this.
Where's a good place around here?
I don't know, I mean, it depends on local perspective. You can just,
West of a really big farm.
Yeah, there you go.
We're on a hill looking east.
The lake, the lakes around, that's all I did, common Neo wise, over Lake Lonalong in Berks County. I don't know how much of a southern or eastern exposure you get up at
Middle Creek?
Middle Creek. Would that be good? Is there any place to stand in the west?
no, because there's a mountain ridge on the east side.
How about Muddy Run? Is there an eastern horizon there? Not really either.
No,
No,
I don't think so.
it's kind of south, it's like kind of southwest there that you get to see
I
the
don't think
water.
it's good enough.
The church parking lot, I think, has a good eastern view.
Yeah, that one should be good. Where we hold the Club Star watches, Eastern Horizon.
That does have a good view there, yeah, right.
I was gonna say, like Herb Mennonite there between Manheim and Lidditz, that has a pretty flat view there too.
It's on a hill too.
I was thinking of a hill, a little bit of a high spot would be where Craters has their chicken farm. Now, that's just a road, but that sits up a little bit and. But I,
You can
as
climb
far
up their
as,
tower with your equipment. They have a nice
Yeah.
tower there, yeah.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to poke around your area. Just remember the fist rule. You wanna keep,
It's hard to tell, I mean, where level is.
that's a good point.
You might want to get out a couple days before at about the same time and go on like a road, like a Ridge Avenue or something like that, something up on a mountain. Because typically they have, crossroads that go down. Because I know that's what I did to get pictures of something launching from Wallops. Is I went on Ridge Road and I found one that had a good southeastern view, so that I could see the
Actually,
rocket come by.
You'll need northeast.
This should be
It's
like east northeast, right?
rise at 67 degrees azimuth. So it's
A little bit left of east, then, right?
yeah, a little bit left of east.
Actually, that might be a good spot.
That's what I was just gonna say, if it's good for that, it probably is good for this.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I guess the key would be then just to, if you really want to see this at that time, is check the sunrise in certain areas to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then you say, okay, I know I'm gonna see it, because right when sunrise, I can see the thing, and then you know you're gonna be able to see it. But it'd be disappointing if you went out and, it only gets above the area where you can see at 6:30, and it's already over, so.
Yeah.
I know that there is like in Ephrata, as I'm driving down 222 southbound, that I get to see the morning sun pretty low in the horizon along that stretch. Now, I don't know if there's a place to get off there that would give you a place to pull over. I'm certainly not going next to 222 to do this, but
Yeah, I
does anyone
think.
know? Is anyone familiar with that spot I'm talking about?
Yeah, if the spot that I found, I forget which road it's on, but
Ridge there would be good.
yeah, there's Ridge Avenue in Ephrata.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
and it was, I forget which crossroad it was, but basically you would go down the hill and there's an overpass for 222.
That's Muller Church Road, right? Muller Church Road? Henry
That
David?
it's next to Moeller Church. It's one of the. You could probably go on Moeller Church.
Okay.
Even get on that overpass, maybe, I don't know. But I know it's like the next road over or something. Eshelman? I don't know.
Somewhere around that area.
I'm actually on a map right now with
Remember
Wheeler.
Crater's Dairy Store used to be? Their parking lot.
Here's Muller Church Road.
Yeah. Right on the-
Still run.
Still run road, yeah. I just don't think I'll be up.
I put myself over here about here. Oh wait, no, that's 222.
I get out of bed around 10.
You're actually on the street.
I go to bed like,
Oh, like right here, yeah.
I was over
Yeah, I'm on the side of the road.
Yeah. so I'm
Well,
trying
even
to
at
avoid
our
that.
house, that's the only direction I have.
All right.
I know they're able to watch the rockets from Wallops up by me, but that's a pretty big haul for most
Yeah.
people.
And those rockets go up a bit higher. Okay, no more questions about the solar eclipse? All right. Dave, why don't you bring us up to date on the high school observatory?
Chris, Maxwell. Can I shut this? I'm not using it.
Yeah.
Dongle. I hate dongles. So I've been busy.
It sometimes takes us a moment.
All right. So, hi everybody. I'm Dave. I've been in the club for like 7 years, but I know I haven't been here for the last 2 or 3. So, I'm a teacher at Manheim Township. I teach astronomy and run the planetarium, and recently was granted a number of grants through our education foundation to build an observatory on our campus. So this is a quick, like, not curated slideshow of just steps along the way, and I have it time stamped. I hope it stays in order. So this is the spot. You can see the marking on the ground where we were planning on digging. We've chosen this location not necessarily based upon the best astronomy position. It was based on a number of factors, including proximity to the school for various different reasons, but primarily for the fact that we needed to get power to it, and they wanted internet as well. And by code, we were required to have access to parking for handicap and also bathroom facilities. So we're pretty close to the building, and as a result, we've got not ideal conditions but I've got an observatory that's going in. So this is some of the hardware that was going to be placed into the ground. So I just, like I said, not curated. So if those of you who are interested, if you're ever interested in building an observatory, this is a base plate for where your pier goes onto. And then these things are J hooks. They go into the concrete. And that's what keeps everything secure and keeps it from moving. So we started digging our footers. We went down 36 inches, I believe, is the depth to get below frost level. And I didn't do any of the digging. This was contracted out, fortunately. You can see we started to remove some of the surrounding trees. And there are a handful of little short videos here. I'm just going to kind of skip through those, though. We are also located next to the tennis court, so I'm happy to tell you that everybody thought it was a concession stand and a bathroom. So that's my top 2. The third was a storage for the tennis court people, because tennis is a big deal in Manheim Township. So you can start to see some of the sonotubes going in. These sonotubes are, basically where the concrete gets poured through piers. And I'm going to move faster here so that you can kind of get a sense as to how things were progressing. This happened over the course of approximately 3 days, 2 to 3 days as they were out here. And now we're putting our base layer of stone in. And you can start to see the beginnings of what is a surrounding fence to keep things secure and keep vandals away. The best we can, at least give them a reason to have to work a little bit harder to get to the observatory, given it's in the middle of this, wide open campus. So here they're starting to they've poured the concrete and they're trying to smooth it. This is when I started getting really excited because it really started to come together. To give you a sense of just the planning process, I've been planning this for 6 years. So this was a big deal. This is pre-COVID. So all of this work was happening in 2019, I guess it would be, or early 2020. So here they're making the basically the concrete lip to just keep this walkway here, this path from crumbling, and also transition us down. This was my idea to kind of keep the building you'll see in a moment is shed structure. And so this is, I know all the dimensions, unfortunately, 7 inches down. That's basically to take into account the height of the shed itself. That way we're wheelchair accessible. So here's the inside of the sonotubes. It's just empty for now. You'll see why. And I'm just going to fly through these. Okay. So I don't think I have any other videos of this, so I'll just show you this for a moment. Inside, I have my classroom. I had this pier. Darn it. I had this pier, and I wanted to check if it was working or not. So the piers are actually motorized. That I push the button and they lift up. And there's a good number of reasons why I wanted this and why I felt it was justifiable. First is in an observatory, you've got high walls around you. And so you want to get the telescope up higher, you need to have a way of doing that. So this is the first reason. The second reason I wanted something like this is because my clientele goes from this tall to this tall. And so I wanted an easy way, if we're doing observational astronomy, to be able to have that easy viewing experience without the need for potentially hazardous step stools and things like that. And third, did it show something there?
No.
No. Okay. Anyway, the third reason is to provide the ability to work once again with handicapped people. So I find this to be very close to home. I've been having now I have 3 surgeries, and I've been in a wheelchair myself a number of times. So if you're ever designing a public facility, I know it's required, but it's much appreciated. I didn't know that until I had to deal with it myself. So this is the structure that's being built. This is at Stoltzfus Structures in Gap. So this is a pre-built structure by them. It's actually being built on their site, believe it or not, and it's brought in on a truck, which was awesome. Now, there's also a warm room structure. So this is the observatory itself. And then the warm room structure is a separate building. This is 12 by, I think it's 16. And then this one is 12 by 10. So they're rather large. This is their biggest option that they have. But given that I'm working with a club of 40 students, this is pretty tiny for our needs. There's doors on either side, so you can pass through it. You'll see there's one of the 2 windows, and those windows face each other so that you can see from the warm room into the other room. The reason I had to do it this way, by the way, is they're limited in how big these can be because of the trucks and how they are transported. So they brought it in with one of their mules, I guess they're called, and they brought it right on the site. These are all videos, but I'm just going to flip through them. And they laid it in there. And I wasn't able to be here. All the videos here were taken by my maintenance department, and kind of made me upset because I really would have loved to have been out there and see it happen after 5 years of working on it. But I was surprised. I got to go out after it was done, and they were sitting there all pretty, looking just like that.
That's
So,
a tight fit.
It's a very tight fit. I mean, the video that you see, the guy is amazingly good with that machine. I mean, he does it every day, but still. I hope this one works. This is the roof rolling off. This is a roof that rolls off onto the side here. This is a very common design, and it basically works like a big garage door. An industrial garage door opener is, in fact, what it's using. I just think the Wi-Fi is not going to handle it here. I've got some that's cute. So I just took some videos and stuff of the interior. This is me on the night before we were going to get the pier concrete poured. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew I needed to find Polaris. So I'm out there. This is Polaris. There's the Big Dipper. Okay, and these two stars, Merc and Duvet, point at Polaris, the North Star. So I'm looking at my structure. I'm looking at Polaris, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I transfer this to the inside of the observatory where these piers are going to be poured? And so I devised this little protractor out of two 2x4s, and I marked them with a. Once I got them lined up, I put one of them straight with the building, and I put the other one on the angle that pointed like line of sight at Polaris. And then I brought that inside. I scribed a mark on it, brought it inside, laid it on the floor, and then I took the mark and I continued it on with 2x4. Worked pretty well. I get some play in my actual mount itself to be able to make the adjustments that are necessary, but I didn't want to risk just doing it at random. So that's the way I came up with. So then the following day, I got everything set up. There's actually my little 2x4 mechanism. So this one goes towards Polaris, and this is the next day. And I had also marked these plates with a Sharpie so that I could know once I was inside that I had the right angle. So when I laid them into the concrete, that it was done well. I accurately did it. There you can see the Sharpie mark. So there's the hole, and I actually asked Stoltzfus to leave a window in the floor. And that way it provided me some wiggle room rather than just having a hole or having to cut it out myself afterwards. So it's just framed out like a window. We've got power, and you don't see it yet because it wasn't installed yet, but there's internet there as well. And that's a 4-inch sonotube. And I believe I calculated somewhere on the order of like many thousands of pounds of concrete. Lots of concrete. Mucho overkill. But I didn't want to underdo it and have problems later. So they came in, they poured the concrete. And I'm just going to fly through these. He did it all by, of course, we're into COVID now. By the way, there's about a 6-month gap of nothing, which was extremely frustrating. So imagine after 5 years, you get these buildings, and then you're not allowed to use them. That was it. So the end of the school year, all of the summer, I wasn't allowed to do anything. This was actually in the summer, the least I could get done. And so he pushed these things into the concrete, got them all leveled up, put painter's tape on them so we wouldn't get anything on the threading. There's 2 of those, by the way. There's Pier 1, there's Pier 2. This is actually looking from the warm room now. I'm looking through the windows. I would have loved to have it all connected, but sorry.
Dave, how precise do you have to be with aligning the plates and the pier? Because I would imagine
depends
you
on your mount.
can adjust, right?
Yeah, it depends on your mount. If you've got astrophysics, you can go 360 degrees, right?
Yeah, but on mine, without getting an extra attachment, it's like plus or minus 5 degrees.
Okay, I think I have in my lost manual, I think I got 15.
Mm.
So I could have probably gotten away without it, but I didn't want to find out.
Yeah. How close are you?
I don't have an idea of exactly how far off my little thing was, but I do know that I'm perfectly aligned with
Operational.
Polaris. I'm operational, yeah.
Very good.
So it's what it doesn't really matter anymore. Right?
Good enough.
So we had to get power into these, so we brought a machine in, we dug a trench, we brought the power in and internet. That comes all the way from here's the piers installed. So you can see how the top here is separate, and that's the part that goes up and down. There's the garage door opener, and it's all wired up for power. And we do have, at this point, we have power. So they are, the way they designed this, tell me if I'm going too long at all. We've got a nut on the bottom with a washer, another washer with another nut, and then like a lock nut. The point of this is that if it ever moves on you, you can adjust it, which is nice. And these parts, there's a little bit of play in here. So like if it tilts to one direction or another, you can still correct for it. So there's tolerances built in. Good design, not cheap, but it was totally worth it in the end.
Was that the J tube that you were showing us
Those
earlier?
are the J hooks. So this goes down. This goes down like this, and then I pointed them outward, so it goes that way.
Okay.
By the way, with this particular setup, it was so close. If I had done it again, I would have went even bigger with my sonotube. It was right at the edge of the sonotube. It barely fit in, which I don't like because that means that those J hooks are on the edge of the concrete, which is not good from a tensile strength standpoint. You can see my little angles in there, my Sharpie marker. So that remains. This is myself and another teacher building the deck. So I built this part, my only contribution from an actual construction standpoint. Never built a deck before. Now I've built one. You'll see if you ever come there that the deck does not look like this. We ended up going the other direction then. So I built it in this direction, and then we tore it apart and put it the other way. Multiple reasons, mostly having to do with how Stoltzfus has this back deck, which is made of the same exact material, and their deck does not match up. It's actually not.
So somebody could trip on it.
Yes, exactly. It's not exactly the same height, and it's also it also tapers in for some reason, and I couldn't correct for it in a nice looking way. So we fixed it. There's my this is what attaches the telescope mount to the pier. So this is my design that I'm trying to communicate to the metal guys who did the work for me to get this mated together. There was custom work necessary there. This is the sensor like you'd have on your garage door, so that if the roof were coming into contact with something, you could quickly just swipe your hand through there and kill the power. I don't love this. It's not what I'm going to keep, but what I'm trying to figure out is a way to provide a sensor like this, or multiple sensors like this, that actually detect if the telescope is already at its height, so that the roof can't roll off when the telescope's up. So anybody has any background with electrical engineering and software engineering, I could use some help with that because I have no idea what to do. It's on garage door opener, and there's also this as well to start and stop and open. My rule is going to be nobody's in the observatory when it's doing it. I'm going to do it with the remote control. That way there's no chance anybody can be in there and get hit. So the rollers on the observatory, I love how many of them there are. It really does a good job to keep the weight distribution. It's a very heavy roof, so it does a great job keeping everything rolling well. And I'm going to fast forward through this. So like I said, there's doors on either side. This is inside the warm room area. Fast forward, I took apart this because I was talking to try to get the roof. I want to get the roof automated so that I can open and close it from the internet. Everything else could be logged into TeamViewer, Microsoft, remote desktop, whatever you want to do. And I could pull over the roof. A student could be like, hey, Mr. Farina, I want to do some observing tonight. And I can say, okay, here's the passcode. And I can monitor them from my house so that they can work on the observatory. The roof is the only thing that doesn't do that. And I also want to put up a weather station. We already have the weather station. I want to make it so that the weather station communicates to the roof via a cloud sensor, which tells the observatory, hey, you can't open. Or there's clouds coming in, it needs to be closed. Because that's the last thing you want, is to be remote observing and have a thunderstorm roll through while your roof is open.
Or snowstorm.
I don't think I'm doing it. Yeah, snowstorm, I guess so, yeah.
Dave, I'm just curious, so because you have a warm room, you're set up for automated viewing?
I can do both, but
Okay,
yes.
so you can do optical. My
Yeah.
question is, the window you left in the floor where your
Yeah.
tubes are up, is that like a tripping hazard or did you
It's
eventually?
closed back in.
You did close it?
And I don't know if I have pictures of it, but there's now a rubber floor in there as well. And I wanted that for a number of reasons. Sound, because I'm going to be bringing the public through. There's one door going in, one door going out. You look through the telescope, you walk the other way. It's very loud from people walking on the shed floor. So it fixed that. And also I said if I drop something like a good eyepiece or camera, I'd rather have a little bit of shock absorption in the floor itself to manage that, hopefully save the eyepiece or camera. So go ahead, yeah.
Dave, you have 2 telescopes in there? You have 2
At this point, I have one, I'll show you in a moment. I have one telescope here that I've actually occupied. The other one is future. I had enough room and I thought, I'm not gonna ask for it because it's extra money. And I want to prove that it's used and used well. And maybe the next telescope and mount will be something a little bit more research-based. Because the one we have right now is more of it's more for an observation thing and astrophotography, but not necessarily research type of telescope.
The reason I asked, you could take, the 2 sensors, your garage door sensors.
You put them across from each other.
So if either
Yeah.
telescope went up, it would.
Yeah, there's some other complications in that though that I don't know how to deal with. But yeah, I kind of thought about that. The problem is that the orientation of the telescope is just so it might not work.
Go down the wall.
I know. I don't know. I got to think it through. But yes, that's something I'm looking at. Thank you. So these guys came in. They put some back up here. So this is the back of it. This is north, okay? And this area is going to be seating / just an extra area because I had to have the roof rolls out to here, so I had to have something, and I have a fence around it. So I said, okay, let's do some landscaping stone. There's not going to be any seats there. You have to bring your own, because then they don't have like a seating capacity. And to make sure of that, you'll see these 2 poles here. There's 2 poles on the other side. There's two 8-foot gates, 16 feet wide, opens the entire back up, and we can have a seating area. And I have this set up here. I'm going to be able to roll either a TV or a projector out there, and we can do talks and we can do laser sky shows type stuff. While I'm talking, I see a lot of people who I know are very good at doing these things. And my hope is that you guys are interested in helping to make this a used facility. I'm going to be there a lot, but I'm one person. My students are learning the hobby. And as soon as they leave high school, I want them to have an opportunity to stay with it. And this club, is always going to need that influx of new interested people. And I thought, what better way to do it than this? So let me just fly through this, all the gates and all the other stuff coming. Trying to get you to the most recent stuff. So there's the building with all of the fence around it.
So may I ask a question while you're
There's the gates.
scrolling? So because I'm ignorant about this design, I'm just curious, why do you have a door to exit one and go into a separate door? Why didn't you decide to have a door between the 2?
I asked about that, and Stoltz Foos said they wouldn't do it. There's too many. Because they're 2 separate buildings.
Okay,
How do you weather seal all that?
okay.
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 And I thought, do I want to have a door and then like a platform between them and then walk and then another door? Like you'd have to have 2 doors. It just would be.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what? I really don't want the public in there anyway. That's not the public side. That's the computers. It's the networking cable. It's our storage area to keep things safe. I mean, that gives me an area that the public cannot tinker with. And if I have anything we don't want them to touch, you put it in there and you lock the door. So kind of like it was kind of helpful anyhow. So
Dave,
this last bit, yeah, I'll stop.
5 minutes.
Okay. It is heated and cooled in both sides. Even though the one is a warm room by mini split, this is required because it's a classroom. Now, the cool thing I found out about this is if you do heat and cool, there's the rack for another mini split. If you do heat and cool an observatory, there is a benefit to that a lot of the research grade facilities do, which is you can estimate your ambient temperature at sunset, and you can force your building to cool off to that temperature. Whereas normally people have a lot of issues with thermal activity when they open their roof up and all the heat pours out of it that was built up throughout the day, and now they have to wait an hour or two before their building cools off till they get reasonable seeing.
By the way, down at Muddy Run Observatory, that's one of the fundamental problems we have. On a hot day, evening, open the dome slit up, and
Too much focal length, I can always drop to this one and make this my guide scope, which would be ridiculous as a guide scope. But the one, this one, they both are once again capable of doing optical, and so there will be times where I am doing a public thing. We'll be looking through these. But they're excellent visual scopes. And the other thing about this is I also, because I teach during the day, although it's not my personal interest, I've decided that solar telescopes are something, or solar astronomy is something that I'm going to try to become an expert on. Why? Because I teach during the daytime. And I want to bring kids out and see the equipment and actually have them do something and force them to do the work. They have to do it. It's part of the class. You want the credit, you need to go do some solar astronomy. But it's going to be great. I have lots to talk about that I'd love to work with you guys on. So please, if you have any questions, let me know.
And this is only about, 3 or 4 miles down the road here?
Yeah.
This is nearby.
Right.
Awesome.
Nice.
Dave, when do you figure you're gonna be open for business?
Number of factors. One, the deck issue, we're still resolving. I'm teaching every day. I can't. In the summertime when I built it originally, I'm hoping that my maintenance department is able to finish up what they're needing to do. And if they don't, once I'm no longer teaching in 3 or 4 weeks here, if they're not done, I'm going to finish it up myself. So that's one. Two, it requires that we have COVID stuff restrictions removed. Now, I will say that I don't think it's a major hurdle. So my hope is that I can have some stuff this summer, but I'm not going to open publicly until the fall because I need to get all the bugs worked out. But for us, and as long as they're okay with it, I'm planning on having it operational by this summer, and I want to get the bugs worked out. So if anybody wants to help me do that, well, I'm not going to. Except for Lane's not allowed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
The scope is yours, though, is that right?
No,
Oh, it's not.
no, the scope is not mine. The scope is the school. Now, I own a scope that looks exactly like this, but it's smaller. So I have a 130 millimeter, not a 152.
5-inch.
5-inch. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Dave. Taking up all my time now.
I'm sorry.
No. That was awesome. I'm jealous of that. Just so you know, I'm not going to play the whole thing. As you can see, it's 25. That's because I did 2 months, because the end of May gets a little hectic in the education. So I just combined them all together, but I'm just going to talk about May. I'm just going to do a couple things. you already stole my thunder for the annular eclipse, but you did a much better job anyway. But really, that total lunar eclipse and the planets is what's going on in May. So let's talk about, let's just do the planets part. Can we get the volume up? Is it? Thank you, Dave.
I remember how to do it in like 2 years.
It should be, you mean,
This is as loud as it is on the, as it can be.
it should be working.
All right, well, let's get started with the sunset planet.
Is that good for everybody?
So let's go over and look in the west around
Oh,
sunset.
I'm trying
Okay.
to make more noise.
A little bit later, just because in the dark till 30 if we're lucky.
If it doesn't work, I can just talk over it anyway.
We're gonna have Mercury and Venus pop in, and let's see how that happens. But Mars, basically, you're just looking west after sunset, and you're just finding that non-twinkling orange reddish dot, and it's right at one of the feet of Gemini down here at the beginning of the month. What's going to happen is Mars is going to move up through.
Why don't you
Gemini
talk to it?
May, and up
Okay.
through-
All right, I'll do that. I'll just mute it and talk about it.
Just turn this down.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, so we just did this in the beginning of May. Mercury's down there. But what we're going to be able to see is basically during May, Mars will be up here in Gemini, and Mercury, this is a really good chance to see Mercury. It's one of the really good apparitions of it. It gets pretty high and is up there for a good bit. And so for May, you're looking at Mars and Mercury in the west after sunset. Then in June, Venus is going to come up and pass Mercury. In fact, I think they're within 1 degree of each other at some day, which I forgot to cover in there. So yeah, that's what you're looking for there. And then we've got some morning planets. You've got Jupiter and Saturn. Throughout both months, they're going to be up, although they are going to move more toward the south by the end of June. But they're going to be up there in the mornings. In fact, by June, I think they're up at midnight. So they're going to switch over to throughout the night planets. If you're planning your evening observing, you probably already know this, but probably your best bet, if you're just staying up, now's actually pretty good. Because we're just getting into morning crescents, and new moon is on the 10th. That's the best time. Then we get some evening crescents, but after that, once you get the first quarter moon, it starts to get a little too light out to really observe anything but the planets. And then, of course, full moon on the 24th. It's not the best time, but the moon's always good to see as well. Let's see what else we got here. Just did that. May 12th. We've got the moon really close to Venus. Now, this is going to be real tough to see, I think. I think you'll be able to see Venus. The moon, actually, I think it's going to be tougher to see. It's going to be very, very, very thin, and it's still going to be light out or dusk out, but they're going to be super duper close. So that's May 12th. And then May 13th, as you see, the moon's actually pretty close to Mercury there. Make a good picture, but still it's a thin moon. And then the moon sort of goes up 13 degrees a day. It moves up closer to Mars on the 14th, right in between on the 14th. And then on the 15th, it's right next to Mars. And then, the total lunar eclipse. How many of you know that there's a total lunar eclipse happening? All right. How many of you are going out to see it? Good. Nobody, because we're not going to be able to see it around here. Unless you're traveling to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you could do that. Or you could go to Eastern Australia or New Zealand. Then you would be able to see it. But the problem is that even the penumbral part with the very faint shadow, I think starts right as the moon sets, if I'm not mistaken. So you'll hear about it. I'm sure NASA will have some sort of live stream. I bet you Mauna Kea is probably live streaming something. So you can probably watch it, but not in person. Oh wait, there, I actually have a picture. Look at that. I was prepared and didn't know it. So this is basically, this is the partial part. We're already in the daylight here when you've got the partial eclipse. So you really have to be here in order to do that. Let's see if there's anything else. And then at the very end of May, we've got some more morning close encounter. You've got the moon, and it's going to pass by Saturn and Jupiter. And that right there is at 4 or 5 in the morning. Those will have already risen by 1. So you can still see them if you decide to just stay up real late. You'll probably see them off in the east rising up, June 1st and June 2nd. And that's pretty much it for May. Yeah, I'll stop it right there. If there are any questions about things to look at, I'd be happy to answer them.
All of you been pretty frustrated with all the overcast lives you've been having and the supposed to be something special this week.
I haven't been able to get out there that much, but I know, wasn't it like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
There was a pretty good stretch with good skies, but yeah, definitely.
Or during the full moon, right?
Yeah, during the full moon, of course. Yeah, it's always hit or miss. You got to be ready to go. All right. There we go.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Okay, before we evacuate, the format we have right now, tables, chairs, like this. I talked to Diane. She said the library will probably continue with this format for a couple more months, or maybe more permanently. How do you like this arrangement? Is it comfortable for you?
Certainly, like if we bring stuff in, it will be a lot nicer to have some tables to put it on.
Yeah. The next change I would expect to see happen here at the library is we'll suddenly have seating for 2 people at each table. Masks, they're not sure about that yet. I don't think anybody is. We'll find out as time goes by. I know it's kind of a pain to keep these on, but yeah. So we have a June meeting coming up. Do you want to hold the meeting here like this, or you want to just cancel that and wait till later to restart the meetings? How many people want the June meeting to happen? Okay.
All right.
Right here.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's already scheduled.
You have a topic yet?
Pardon?
You have a topic yet?
No. We haven't thought that far ahead, sorry.
Okay.
This meeting was like something on the spur of the moment, so, but we'll get something planned. And keep in mind, topic suggestions, email them to me, all right? Anything you want to go over.
Elaine, the meetings are starting at 6 now instead of 6:30.
Yeah, and it's because they have to clean this room before they shut down. It takes them about 30 minutes. So my thought is, let's continue to start at 6. I know not everybody gets here, but we'll, be flexible about that. But we do have to be out at 7:30 from now. Who knows what the future is going to be, but I think things will change dramatically by July. We'll see. Any closing comments, anyone?
Well, I'm glad we finally had a meeting.
Yeah.
You're here.
All right, well, Well, thank you for coming. We've still got 10 minutes. You can commiserate and create mayhem or whatever. And I'll email everybody the information